Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started with today's session. I hope that got everyone in the mood for a CPE event. Pretty exciting intro to come in and talk about a normal event. So we're going to keep that energy going here. To give you just a little bit of administrative things for today before I do introductions. Today is a 1 CPE credit session. Have to attend all 50 minutes and answer 3 polling questions. We will send out the CPE certificates emailed next week. Use the question function. That's really important. We have been lucky during these sessions to get lots of questions from people. We do watch those, answer a little bit in there, but mostly we're answering them live. And then finally, we will send out email with the slides. One of the most common questions we get is, can I get a CPE certificate and will you be sending out the materials? So we're telling you up front that yes, that is what we're going to be doing. I'm excited about today's topic. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Tom Wadelton. I am one of the virtual CFOs at Summit CPA Group, and I'll be facilitating today's session. In addition to Summit, I like to stay active in the profession and just finished a term on the board of the Indiana CPA Society, where I was chair last year. Next year, I'm joining the AICPA Board of Governance for a 3-year term starting in 2021. And the reason I mention that is I try to keep up with topics around the profession. One of the common ones that comes up, and it's often called the war on talent. And so people are talking about, how do you retain people? How do you attract people? How do you get them in the right position? And I think most of you probably agree that's probably as important as a lot of the technical things that we do. We're lucky today to have 3 really good speakers with us. So Zach Montroy is going to be our main presenter today. Zach is the Director of People Strategy at Summit CPA Group. As you know, we offer virtual CFO services. Zach works for a company named Navigate the Journey, and they offer virtual services for HR and HR direction. So he brings a wealth of experience to our company that he also collects from other clients to bring that to us. So Zach will be doing that. He's joined with Jody Grunden, who is the CEO of Summit CPA Group, and then also Adam Hale, who is the COO of Summit CPA Group. So right as we're getting started, let me start with the first polling question. So we've introduced ourselves, and this gets us just a quick chance to kind of get to know who the other people are. So the first polling question should have launched now. So if you can tell us just a little bit about your role in the firm, it'll give us just a quick glance as kind of what our audience looks like today. And then we'll jump into our first slide. Okay, we'll go about 10 more seconds. So if you haven't voted, please go ahead and get your vote in.
I still have that song in my head.
I know. Maybe we should just sing along, Adam, while everyone's doing the polling.
Exactly. I feel like we're missing the wigs. It would have been, it came full circle.
Okay, closing the poll now. Okay, and let me quickly share the results. Okay, so Zach, you have an idea who your audience, kind of as we expected, mostly owners and partners with a lot of leadership in there. So it seems like a perfect group to be talking about people and strategy.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. I'm excited to be with you all today. Great to have a lot of owners on the call. Great to have staff members, leaders. We are really going to be talking a lot about people operations, the people side of the business today. And so really our objective, when we kind of look at our time that we've got over the next 45, 50 minutes or so, is how, as a business owner, how as a leader, how as a staff member, how do we get strategic around hiring? From hiring to high performance team member, what does it take to find those people? Tom mentioned the war on talent. There's a lot of great jobs out there. There's a lot of great companies recruiting. What is it that sets you aside? What is it that sets the right candidate aside for a great role on your team and in your company? And then what are those skills that you look for? What are those skills that you develop? I am not an accountant, so we are not going to talk about technical accounting skills today, because that would be really scary for all of you today. But we are going to talk about the people side of things, and really how do we cultivate a culture that's engaged? How do we cultivate a culture where we're giving our best every day? We enjoy the work that we get to do, how we get to serve along our clients, and really be transformational leaders. Hopefully create these environments where people want to serve at their best every single day. And Jody and Adam, I'd love to hear from you, from both of you, really, because I think Summit's made a big turn and a big shift in this area over the last few years, kind of moving from a traditional HR model to really more of a people operations model, where we are really looking at, the whole cycle, from really getting strategic around hiring to making sure each team member is sitting in the right seat. They get it, they want it, they have the capacity to do it.
Yeah, I think the big thing is hitting on what you said originally. We focused a lot on the technical abilities, and we were often disappointed. It was, that's kind of permission to play. Whenever you come to work for the accounting firm, you can look at the resume and you can kind of figure out, based on their experience, what technical abilities they're bringing to the table. But it was those soft skills, those other things that are really important, especially in a virtual environment, to be able to bring to the table, that it was just hard for us to get our hands around. So, bringing you in and learning more about some of the people assessments, and the filtering process was big. But then also, I think over the last year or two, what we learned was that's not where we stop. It was really about then focusing and onboarding effectively the team, which is what's made the big difference for us, I think.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that, a lot of great points Adam mentioned there. The other big thing was that the technical skills was, again, the primary thing a long time ago. And then it wasn't until we actually started increasing our interview structure and making it longer in length do we actually start seeing some really good results, trying to weed out the people that just weren't a good fit. I went from having maybe a 2 or 3 interview process to right now we have about a 10-stage interview process, where it's a lengthy process going through and trying to find the right candidate and find the perfect, not only technical candidate, but more so, like Adam mentioned, more the relationship candidate. The candidate's going to be able to convey our message, to our clients and work well with our team. I think it's been huge in the success of our team. And then, of course, having a quick letting people go quick. That was the other problem that we had. We tend to keep people on too long, and we've decided, hey, that's just not the right way to go. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to our team. It's not fair to us. And so we're quick to let people go too. So long hiring and slow hiring and long firing, or quick firing.
Absolutely. And we're going to dig into that a little bit today. And I think there is just a big mindset shift that's happening in the industry today that probably wasn't true 15, 20 years ago. It's really interesting as I talk to business owners. When you think about your biggest expense, it is 9 times out of 10 always people. And really shifting the mindset to your biggest expense becoming your biggest asset. You've got this amazing asset, hopefully, on your team and in the people that you've hired. But unfortunately, many companies don't invest in that asset. They don't attend to that asset. And you think about, even hopefully you're saving for retirement. I know enough to know that, right? But having, I've got someone who helps me with that. I've got someone who is looking out for those assets to make sure that they're being invested in well. And I think you as a leader, you as a owner of a company, have this amazing opportunity to really get strategic with about how you treat, how you think about your people. Times have changed. I think for many of us, we think of HR as this, they this stuffy old office and like triplicate forms, and like you go to them when you have a problem with your medical insurance. And I think that not only have times changed, but I think this whole idea of attending to your team members, making sure that you're cultivating a healthy culture on your team, that you're aiming to really attract and retain good talent, setting a tone that fosters alignment and growth in impactful work is really, really important. It's interesting. Gallup's done a lot of workplace culture surveys, but the research is really telling us that 90% of business owners know that people operations, that people care, that coaching and fostering development among their team members is important. And only 20 to 25% of leaders, of owners have a meaningful plan to actually do that with their people. Ed Catmull, who led the Pixar team for years, said if you come up with a good idea with a mediocre team, they're going to screw it up. If you give a mediocre team a brilliant idea, they're either going to fix it or throw it away or come up with something better. You've got to have a great team that's capturing great ideas in acting on those. And really for us, it started around recruiting. Recruiting for the VCFO position role is very different than the traditional accountant. And so, Adam, Jody, you have both had a lot of years in the field. Jody, you especially, I think you've been in accounting for like 65 years at this point, right? I'm just kidding. This will be my last webinar with Summit. I'd love to hear how, you started in a big four firm. You kind of put your time in there. I'm guessing hiring looked very different there than it does for us on the VCFO side. I'd love to kind of hear how you've seen things change and what you're seeing as really effective in our hiring process these days.
Yeah, I would say the testing, the fact that 100% of the hiring is done virtually, so we're done. It's done over video, which is obviously completely different. And we've been doing that for quite some time now, since 2013. So it's just one of those things that we've kind of fine-tuned over the years. And that's completely different, obviously, than when I worked for other accounting firms way back when. But the big thing is we go through a lot of different testing tests, like EQI and many different Colby, many different types of testing to figure out, hey, is this the right job for me? Am I the right one for that job? Those have been a couple key things. And then, of course, usually when we were at the other firms, we would go out for dinner and they would, talk socially. Well, we kind of do the similar type of thing there, where instead of going out for dinner, where you're meeting the team virtually, the people that will be working, directly with you, underneath you, and above you. Just getting a good feel for who is Summit, and then also, who are you? So kind of gives a view from both. Hey, are you going to be a good fit, and do you feel that we're a good fit for you? It's a combination thing. So I think the fact that there's a significant amount of interviews is going to be turn off for a lot of candidates, and that's good because those aren't the candidates that we're going to want for the job. So we want to make sure that they really, really want this. They're just not job shopping, looking for something easier than because it's not. Although we're virtual, it's a 40-hour work week. We work the same as everyone else does. So it's important to make sure that we weed the people out that really aren't there for a full-time commitment.
Right.
Jody, you mentioned virtual.
Oh, go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
You mentioned the virtual meetings we do with candidates. I've always thought that was important since we meet virtually with our clients, right? You're seeing exactly how that candidate comes across virtually, which is exactly how they would do the same with a client.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam, I'd love to hear from you too. What do you look for when you're looking at a CFO, someone who's going to be interacting with people on video all day long? How's that different from, the traditional accountant who's, maybe going on site and meeting with people and kind of is doing what traditional focused accountants do?
Yeah, it's the ability to just pick up a conversation. It's really easy whenever you're physically around somebody just to allow conversation to happen. Don't get me wrong, there's a little bit of an art to that as well. But being able to just kickstart conversations, which I know that sounds pretty simple, but you want it to be natural. You want it to feel like somebody that you can just talk to. So whenever we are doing that screening and we're talking to people, we're seeing, how they kick off the conversation, how they're warming up to us, what the small talk sounds like, if it feels forced, because we want them to just feel like it's really natural whenever they're talking to us. Yeah.
That's so important too. Like we've even put, some financial statements in front of candidates before and said, tell us the story you tell from these numbers. Mm-hmm. And they, we see people who just start reading the information to us. And, that's definitely a warning sign for us when we're recruiting folks. But those that are really able to tell the narrative, tell the story behind what these numbers are telling a business owner, we know are going to be a pivotal part of success for them. Because, our CFOs, our leaders on our team are coming alongside a business owner, right? They are in the area that is scariest, I think, for every business owner: their finances, the money that they have available to hire new team members, to take care of the people that they've been entrusted to care for as owners. And so I think as CFOs, you're really kind of given a high degree of trust really early on in the relationship with a business owner. And that's not something to be taken lightly. And so, when I came in to kind of help Summit with this, they knew this was true. But what we kind of lacked was how can we measure this? How can we see this on the front end in a hiring process, making sure that we've got people who can attend to fears and feelings when talking to a business owner, that can ask them about strategy, that can ask them about where they want to take their business, and really align the finances to serve that business owner well. One of the key indicators of success that we have found in research has time and time again proven this, is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is one of the most pivotal predictors of success in successful entrepreneurial organizations. The Leadership and Organizational Development Journal actually published some research a few years ago, and it found that just from emotional intelligence alone, it could predict the profitable from less profitable company almost 90% of the time, by just looking at the level of emotional intelligence that the leadership team had. So we knew, we've got these CFOs who are sitting on leadership teams in companies across the country. We knew that this was going to be a really pivotal predictor of their success. 90% of top performers across pretty much every industry in North America has a higher level of emotional intelligence. And so not only is this an assessment that you can use on the front end, you can actually, the American Psychological Association gives a rating to every assessment. You can tell a candidate no, where this is not going to work out based on their emotional intelligence score. Another assessment that we use is the Colby, and we'll talk about that in a second. But the trajectory from hiring to top performer, we actually use that emotional intelligence data. And Tom, you might be able to really talk about this as a CFO on our team. But I remember going over your emotional intelligence scores with you before we even hired you. And we've used that in your development, in your coaching, and in really how you lead your clients. So I'd love to hear kind of from your experience how that's been, a pivotal key for you in being a good consultant.
Yeah, I can think of two things, Zach. I remember the meeting really well where you and Tracy sat down with me and walked through that. And it went from feeling like, okay, this is a hurdle I'm trying to get over, a test I'm taking, to much more of it. We're just really trying to see if you're a fit in here. And so that really helped me kind of think of, okay, so what is Summit looking like for a fit, and how do my skills or emotional intelligence fit that? The other thing that really stands out is within about the first month, you and I sat down for a coaching session that you're doing with all of us. And you had really studied that and came through and said, okay, based on these things, here's where I think you would be. I mentioned a couple of things I was challenged with, and you related it back to what my emotional intelligence said, related to a client and sort of probably where they were on the scale versus where I was. And that could be where the difference was. So I found it very valuable for both finding a good match and then also developing after that point.
Yeah. Adam, I'd love to hear from you. How has this kind of helped us avoid challenges and people problems along the way? Because you've seen both the before and after of us using this with our recruiting and with our team members.
Yeah, especially on the recruiting side, I think that it's about trusting the process and the system. I mean, I think we've had situations where we've really liked the candidate and we're like, oh, they seem really good, and I know that you're a master of being able to kind of unpack what's on the EQI and then work through those to kind of validate the results a little bit. But I think that I've just seen it time and time again where the vote's yes on somebody, but the EQI is like no, like stay away.
Mm.
And we have had an opportunity, at least one instance that I can think of where we just kind of pushed forward, and it happened exactly like, kind of what the assessment said. And so since then, we've been pretty good about trusting the process, regardless of how we feel about the candidate. It's just not a good fit. We do the assessment for a reason. So I think it's been helpful, and it's proved itself to be a good tool, on the recruiting side. And then, of course, from a development side, once a team member is here, it gives you, as people strategy director, the ability to kind of figure out what we need to work on and see if those things kind of hold true throughout the onboarding process.
Yeah. One great quote I heard Brene Brown say, and I'm definitely a Brene Brown fanboy, but she said, "I've never met a great transformational leader who does not have a coach or good therapist by their side." And Jody, for you as an owner, both you and Adam have made an investment in coaching we coach all of our CFOs on an ongoing basis. Really because we believe strongly in this. So I'd love to hear from you. What have you seen the benefit be profitability wise? Let's even talk about that side of things. By investing in your team member, how has their performance, how has their interactions with clients gotten better from really being intentional about this?
Yeah, I think the intentionality is the key thing there. Often we as owners, we pick the people and then we put them in their position and we just kind of let them go. And then it's not until days or months or years later we realize, wow, they're not even teaching it. They're not even doing the things that we've been teaching them to do. They're doing their own little thing. And what this allows us to, bring them in and help them, and allow you to coach them up. Dollars and cent wise, we strive for that 75% gross profit on every job we work with. And with that, there's a lot of psychology involved there because, with the way that we work on a flat fee, we don't have any wiggle room where we can just put more time in and all of a sudden we're billing more hours. It really doesn't work that way. It works just the opposite. The more time they put in there on a job, the less profitable we are on that job. And so it's important that when we convey to them that, hey, we need you to have 10 clients or 15 clients, a new CFO coming in, when we tell them that, I think their mouth kind of drops out. It's like, wow, that's impossible. But just through coaching and helping them figure out, hey, how can I manage people better? How can I manage my team better? How can I manage my time, myself better? It gets them to the point where they can actually manage, more time and more clients. And then again, the more clients they manage, the more profitable the company is. So again, it kind of goes hand in hand for sure with profitability and commitment to training people in that manner.
Absolutely. And yeah, just kind of a peek behind the curtain. A couple of years ago, I would say our most prevalent issue on our team was the avoidance of hard conversations. And when you have not developed we all have strengths, we all have blind spots. The emotional intelligence inventory would tell you that. Even, as you work and grow as a leader, we all have both of those things we've got to attend to. But this avoidance of tough conversations was actually really affecting our profit margin on clients, because what was happening is we had leaders, we had CFOs who were like hoarding hard work. They were hoarding things that they were getting stuck on. They weren't having those hard conversations, which requires a great deal of emotional intelligence and trust building. And what we have seen, I think one of the transformations we've seen on our team is this ability to say, like, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do here. Can you help me? One of the number one ways we can build trust is to ask for help, but it takes emotional intelligence to do that well. And now I think we see this, these leaders, these CFOs who are okay delegating work. They know what they're good at. They know what they need help with. They know how to have tough conversations with their clients, which in turn has helped the profitability of our company. We can pay our people better. They get better bonuses. Like it's a win-win really for everyone, and they enjoy the work that they get to do. So let's kind of take a peek behind the curtain on what does hiring remotely look like for us. We have a very data-driven approach to hiring, if you have applied for a job at Summit, you have gone through a pretty rigorous process before we actually even have an interview with you. As we said, we're a remote, fully virtual firm. And so one of the things that we have learned is it's really important to ask for videos early on in the process. We have a number of questions as part of our interview process that we ask you to answer on video. And we're really looking for, how do you interact? What does an interaction for you virtually maybe look like? Is it easy? Is technology easy for you? Is it going to be something that you can adapt to well? And then we look at some data. As we talked about, emotional intelligence is a big assessment that we use early on in the process to really predict how you're going to show up with your clients. How are you going to show up in the work that you do? We also use the Kolbe assessment. If you've not heard of that assessment, it's one of my favorite assessments out there. It kind of goes back to, and here's a little geek talk for you, but Plato and Aristotle talked about the 3 parts of the mind: the cognitive, which is where IQ, our skills, education lies; the affective parts, where emotional intelligence, our desires, motivation lie. But here we're talking about the countative, or the behavioral. How are you going to work? How do you embark on the process when something is new for you? We call it the striving process, and it's really how do you do your work? And that assessment measures that just by looking, and it's again one of the assessments you can use. It has a 94% validity rating with the American Psychological Association unbiased assessment. But we can predict how you are going to show up in certain situations just with that assessment alone. What environments you're going to be comfortable with, which environments you're not going to be comfortable with. Stanford actually did a study using just the Kolbe, and they could predict with 84% accuracy whether someone was going to be a good fit for a role or not. So we use this. It actually grades candidates. It gives us an A, B, C, D, or F rating on a candidate based on their Kolbe profile, whether or not they're going to do well in the job. So combine that with what you see in the emotional intelligence. We've got this great set of data so that when we start interacting, and Jody said, we have a lot of interviews, we have a really good picture of what the candidate is how they're going to do the job. What questions to dig into, what questions to ask, what to look out for. And so this has been a huge part of really recruiting in developing great candidates for our team, because we want people to lean into their strengths. We want to see them do the job well. We want to see them have great satisfaction in the work that they do. And another huge part for us is hiring on core values. So I think we've got a really strong set of core values as a team. And so, Jody, I'm going to throw this question to you. What do you look for when we're in the hiring process? When you're kind of assessing core values, the things that are most important to us, which are curiosity, humor, collaboration, adaptability, empowerment, and candor. How do we look for those core values showing up in candidates' lives, and what's the importance to you as the owner? One of the co-founders of the company, in looking at these core values with candidates.
Yeah, it's kind of funny you'd say that, because the one that we pop up and that everybody's probably wondering why that's a core value of ours, but humor. We like people that can actually just kind of relax, that can have fun, that can, they can really just be themselves versus a very stiff personality that, has to be very rigid in their answers. So humor is a real big thing. Adaptability is another one. We change all the time. And that's kind of how we started, change for change's sake. We don't do that, but we change pretty quickly, and we change, for the betterment of the company. So we have to have somebody that can basically accept change. And again, that's hard to find in the accounting world. A lot of accountants they're not born that way. They don't like change. They like, rigid things. And so we like people that can adapt to a changing field, because in order to work for our company, you have to be able to adapt. We could be perfectly using one software today, tomorrow find a better software and make it a switch right away. And
Which
again,
we have, right?
which we have several times. Yeah, we get better and better and better. That's the whole idea. But not everybody's cut from that cloth, and so we have to make sure that adaptability and I guess a sense of humor are the two more important things for me.
That's good. Adam, you kind of come in at the end of the process. So how has, when you kind of look at the data set, when you look at what we've gone through in the process, when a candidate kind of shows up in your virtual office, how do you kind of use this to suss out whether or not this is going to be a good fit candidate for the team and for the company?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, it's really more about just getting to know them as a person and what their comfort level is. So, I really do, like we talked about earlier, trust the process. So once they've went through the initial filtering piece, and then they've spoken with you, we've reviewed the assessments, and then they've met the team, then it's really about just kind of getting a feel for who they are, setting expectations, talking to them a little bit about the core values, like you mentioned. They're all pretty strong, and we point to them in everything that we do, both internally and externally. So just kind of talk a little bit about what those mean to us and what we kind of expect of them, and then get a feel for, what their expectation is of us as well. Because, a lot of times that's what it's about, is just managing expectations. So that's really what that last meeting is. It's more of a formality than anything else. But it's good to get that all on the table. And usually people haven't really had really deep conversations about that until that point.
Yeah.
Zach, I'm going to go ahead and launch another poll question, and you just go ahead. That'll be up on the screen. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Tom, for doing that. How many team members are in your company? Yeah, that'll be awesome information to have here as you answer that question. One of the things that we really have worked very diligently on is what does our interviewing and hiring process look like? And it astounds me when I talk to owners, when I talk to leaders at companies and ask that question, like, tell me what your process looks like. Tell me what your hiring process looks like. And they're like, well, we post a job and then we interview people. And I'm like, okay, well, that's good. That's smart, that you're interviewing people, but like, what should your process look like? And I would encourage you, if you have any influence in the hiring process whatsoever, do a SWOT analysis. Ask what's right, what's wrong, maybe what's missing, what's confused when it comes to the progression of our process. So if we're starting, and Tom, interrupt me if we need to stop here and kind of look at the responses from the poll.
Nope. We're okay. Back to your slides. When we get to a point, I'll tell you how many people were in what groups.
Awesome. That sounds good. Thanks, Tom. When we look at the progression of a hiring process from the point in which we write the job description, when we answer questions about what kind of candidate are we looking for, what kind of education, what kind of experience, what's their emotional intelligence level, what does their Colby profile look like, what are they motivated to do, from the point in which we hire them, I want you to have every point of that process documented out. What interviews are you doing? Are you doing an interview, having them tell you their professional journey? What behavioral questions are you asking in your process? What, when you talk about the jobs that person has had, what was difficult about those jobs? What challenges did they have? What questions are you asking about their success, the team members that they had to work with? You are going to gain a whole bunch of information based on the type of questions that you ask in those interviews. And it is always concerning to me when there's an undocumented process, when there are not questions that we've put out there that we ask in interviews. And I'm not telling you need to follow a super rigid, ask this question, this question, this question, and this question. But there are so many best practices out there on behavioral questions that are going to help you understand how this person's going to do the job, how they're going to show up. This is really where you start to tie the data that you see in these assessments to the interview process. What do we need to be looking out for in these interviews? How is your team interacting with candidates? They're going to be the ones who are working alongside. They can tell the candidate how the job's going to go for them. So making sure you're involving your team, you're asking really great questions, you've trained your team members, you've invested in the folks that are going to be interviewing. And we use people throughout every level of the company in our interviews. I think that's so important. Making sure that your team members are walking alongside in this process and really doing that well. We've come up with a number of hiring process questions that we use in that process. We've kind of documented out what our entire process looks like. It's about 10, 11 steps, where we're running assessments, what we're doing with that data, who's getting after those questions. It's all part of that process that we walk through from start to finish. And Adam, I'm going to lean on you here. So no names or anything, but we've had some horror stories when we didn't do that. When we skipped a process, or we're just like, we got to hire someone, we've got to get them on the team really, really quickly. And we kind of truncated the process and it cost us. So I'll just leave it there. Tell us about what we've learned from that.
Well, again, and I've said this a couple times already, it's about just trusting the process and making sure that we follow it. Anytime that we went out of bounds, we paid the price for it. And so, yeah, without mentioning names, I can think of a few right off the top of my head. But, and then we tried to do things on the back end to kind of clean it up, and it just didn't work. We didn't avoid the mistake up front that we could have clearly saw had we slowed down a little bit. But there are times whenever we need somebody right away. So having that process defined and in place, it doesn't mean you can't accelerate it. You just can't skip things, which is really kind of what we learned.
Good. Well, before we move on, Tom, tell us the results of our last poll.
Yeah, so Zach, a little bit more than half of the people, in fact, I'll just share it and then hide it.
Cool.
So a little bit more than half are in firms larger or companies larger than 10 people. And then about a third of people sit in that sort of handful of people in there.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Pretty evenly split.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Tom.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so document your process, do some analysis on what you think is really right about your process, what's wrong, maybe what's missing, what are those steps you need to add, maybe what's confusing for the candidate, for your team, for just the process in general. In no process is perfect. We're gonna make, and hopefully I feel like I've learned the most from mistakes that I've made. That's definitely where things have been added for us, for the processes that I recommend. But let's talk a little bit about once we've made that decision, we've gone through that process, we've run the assessments, we've gone through the interviews, we're inviting a person to join our team, join our firm. From the onboarding perspective, this was something we really had to go back and look at to make sure that there was some intentionality behind this for us, that we were, from day one, more concerned about an employee's success, the team's success, making sure that employee retention was really important for us. And so, day one, when they join our team, we kind of have a plan for them to not only learn the technical tools, and I'm not going to talk about that, but I'll let Jody speak to that in just a second. But really from the technical tools to really helping them discover and understand their assessments, how their personality is going to interact with those that they serve with and alongside, and helping them understand how to people read clients and communicate well to them. In Jody, most recently, we really spent a lot of time on the technical side of onboarding. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what our accounting team, what our CFOs have kind of done to make sure, when we have a team member join in, they kind of go to school on what the Summit way is really, really quickly.
Yeah, we actually just finished up a course to kind of put them through, a 15-module course, which we have them go through each one of the modules and broken out into different areas. And each module is about an hour with questions and a guidebook, and just kind of walking them through, hey, here's what Summit's all about, and here's what the expectations are, and here's how we do everything from sales to marketing to, all of our processes and tools, and, everything's just kind of laid out for them. And it's something we started and put together, I think back in just a few months ago when we had our leadership retreat, and we wrapped it up just in the last week. So pretty excited about that whole process for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, we're really excited about that course, and really something that we've poured a ton of resourcing in to help people get up to speed, so that they are successful much earlier. Because we've all had that new job where we sat there for 6 months, like trying to figure out where the bathroom was. So trying to really help our team members jump in and learn how we do this, how we serve alongside clients. And then from the soft skills perspective as well, we've got a plan from day one on development and growth and leaning into your strengths and compensating for your blind spots. And one thing that we do, I would say is very different. Many companies don't do this. When it comes to performance reviews, your first performance review when you join the Summit team is 10 days in. The end of your second week, you've got your first performance review. And so, Jody, tell us what that looks like. Adam, I'd love to hear you sit in a lot of these. We ask 3 questions of every person: what to start, what to stop, what to continue. What do you guys see as the benefit there of having these reviews so early on in the process for our team?
Yeah, I think it's just important for them to be able to, we get caught up in the day-to-day work, so it does become really technical on a day-to-day. So a lot of times we don't have the opportunity to assess what the overall miss is, consolidate things, and then to be able to hear it from other people that are working with you. And there's usually a theme to it, whether it's good or bad, whatever. Most of the time it carries from the different people that you're working with, and it really helps the person realize, oh, okay, that's actually a thing I need to work on. And I think what our team's great about, not only saying, hey, this is what you should stop, start, and continue, but they also follow it up with advice. So I think every single time it's not the intent isn't to knock somebody down or whatever, or just point out a flaw. They go, and here's how I've seen this work, and here's how I've seen solve it. We'll brainstorm with them, and we've seen them to put that into action and improve as we go through the following assessments. And the fact that we do them so close together, sometimes it feels like, hey, I don't have anything else, but you're kind of building off of that first appearance, if you will, and you're kind of making sure that those improvements are happening, which is nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's often the candidate, or not the candidate, but the employee knows exactly what those are, because we have them kind of do a self-assessment, where they feel they're at, and they're pretty much dead on most of the time. And if they're not, that's a bigger problem than anything. And so it gives them that chance to improve, because nobody wants to go through a review 6 months later or a year later and find out all these mistakes you made throughout the year, and you just wish that someone would have actually told you you could have fixed it, that type of thing. And so this allows them to have the ammunition that, hey, here's what you're doing right, here's what you're doing wrong, here's what you need to continue doing throughout that entire process, so you can build on your blind spots, build on your successes. What are you really good at? Well, let's make sure you're extremely good at it, and have people telling you that really kind of helps out. So I think the start, stop, and continue is invaluable. It's great. And it I think it really helps and sets us apart from a lot of firms.
It does.
Yeah,
and I think it really, go ahead.
Sorry, if I can remind people, we do have the question function in the GoToWebinar. So if people have questions that you want us to try to answer during today's session, please use that, because we are monitoring that channel.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah. One accident that happened there, Zach, that I think is an important add-on is the fact that they also do a stop, start, and continue on the people that they're working with as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that happened again on accident. One time, the team member just didn't understand that they were supposed to self-assess the stop, start, and continue. So they did it on us. And we were all kind of like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. We didn't realize we weren't helping you.
Yeah, we should do this.
Ways.
Yeah.
So it evolved into coming part of that process as well.
Yeah, we have a high feedback culture, and this is a big part of it, because, like I said, at the 10-day point, you're in your first review. First 90 days, you're doing that every 2 weeks with every team member that you work with. And so this creates this culture and cadence of giving feedback and doing it in a healthy way. So and I like to say we should have a no surprise culture. We do another review at the 90-day point. That's kind of the probationary period. We do the next one at 6 months, and then every year thereafter. But there's never surprises in our, I mean, I shouldn't say never. There are not many times are there big surprises in reviews, because we've equipped the team to have a high feedback culture. We're coaching our leaders, better self, better team, and really helping have this growth mindset that, none of us should stay stagnant. We should always be open to and receptive to feedback, which really kind of helps, segue into why trust and transparency for us is so important. One thing that we added this year was every CFO, every director on our team is going to have a 360 on them. And this isn't a place to like drop anonymous crappy feedback. It's not that at all. But we all have strengths. We all have blind spots. How do we make sure that we're helping our team members understand how they're showing up well, what they're doing they're really just excelling at? What are those things that they need to watch out for and improve? And that's highly related to DISC. How do our personalities inform how we interact with one another? Our pay scales are completely transparent. Our team knows how much each other make. Our CFOs know how much each other's bonuses are based on their performance, which is like, we have a level playing field. And it's really helped us in the DEI conversation as well, that we're just highly transparent about our processes, our pay structures, in really giving each other feedback. But another big part of retention, trust, and transparency for us has been the investment in retreats. Getting together in let's just call this like pre-COVID. But Jody, this has been a big investment and a big passion of yours and a big benefit, I think, to our team. So I'd love to hear why this is important to you as one of the owners.
Yeah, I mean, it is a big investment for sure. We spend a lot of money on retreats. We've got a 50-person team, and you're going to spend between $1,500 to $3,000 a person. So it's a big investment for sure. But in the same respect, we don't have a brick and mortar office, so we've got some leeway right there too. Plus this is the requirement, because this is where we actually get a chance to hang out with each other. We don't get that opportunity during the week or during the month, through a video chat like this. This works great for working, but we need that chance to kind of let loose with each other a little bit. And that really helps the overall culture of the company. It's amazing how many times that we'll go to a retreat and we'll have it workshopped out, and then we have these dinners afterwards. And it's kind of amazing. They just hang out with each other the rest of the night. Very few people actually go back to the room, and it's kind of the opposite, I'm used to in other cultures where, you're dragged to the retreat, you can't wait to leave, and then at 5 o'clock, boom, you're gone, and you don't see each other till the next day. And it's completely the opposite. And I think it's one of the big, huge, benefits or perks from working in a remote environment, because again, we get that opportunity to touch and feel each other in the respect that you wouldn't get, in a truly remote where we couldn't do that.
Yeah, and just, I know we're getting towards the end of our time here. A couple of really great resources, I think, that have been pivotal to our team's success and really helping us think well around cultivating a high performance team. Good to Great, anything written by Jim Collins really is a good resource. But he uses this metaphor of the bus, right? How do we get the right people on the bus? How do we get them in the right seats? And the investment for us has been getting that right the majority of the time, making sure that we're inviting the right people to join us in the work that we do. We're putting them in the right position right away so that they're able to perform at their best. So great resource for you. Kim Scott wrote the book Radical Candor, really helping your team give good feedback that is coupled with caring personally for one another. And she talks about on our teams having rock stars, superstars, and what to do when you have a no star kind of person, that person who's not performing well. How do you give good feedback? How do you cultivate an environment where people can grow, develop, be better? How do we cultivate those people on our team that are going to be those rock stars, the people who are steady? We've got a lot of senior accountants on our team that just want to be senior accountants, but they want to do a really great job at that. They don't want to be a CFO, and that's okay. You need to have those people on your team, and it's okay to not push them to be a CFO. And so that's really helped us give some good language to that. And then we use the people and accountability chart. If you've read Traction by Gino Wickman, part of the EOS process, every person understanding where they stand. Do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have the capacity to do it? How are they performing within the set of our core values? We have every employee rate their performance on core values. Their supervisors do that as well. And we have a clear and concise job description for every person on our team. So just some really good resources that have really helped shape our journey. And lastly, I'll let Adam and Jody talk about the virtual CFO Playbook, because this is a great resource for you as well.
Right before that, Zach, if you don't mind, let me go ahead and launch the last polling question.
That'd be great.
And maybe it's a chance with this one. So people describe kind of where they are from no process, I've got a little bit of process, to I've got a formal system and things are integrated. A couple comments you want to make about sort of if you find yourself maybe with no processes in place, what a good sort of first step is?
Yeah, give us a call. Buy the virtual CFO Playbook. It's going to give you some really good tips for that. I would say start with, there's a book called The Who, I think is the name of it. And it really, we can post this in the CFO community, the Slack as well. But it's a great book on helping you create a great hiring process. And then really invest in your people, invest in your team, find a good coach, find someone who can help you look at your process and tell you what you're doing well and where you need to work on improving. It will pay dividends for you in the future. So make sure that you've got that. You're evaluating your system on a regular basis. EOS is a great system as well to help you really do that and think about coupling strategy with people.
Okay, Zach, I'll go ahead and share what you can see. Interesting that a little bit less than half say no process in place, and the remaining saying just a little bit of process in place. Does that surprise you?
We all have potential to grow here, right? So this is a positive way to look at that.
True HR answer. That's totally good. He's so diplomatic with that.
Yeah. The non-diplomatic answer was you need to start. You got to do something. And there's, again, we've shared a lot of good resources. If we can help you in any way, please reach out to us. I'll put our email up here on the screen in a second. But this virtual CFO Playbook is going to be a really good one for you, because we've done some work in here as well that'll help you develop these processes. So Jody, you want to talk about this?
Actually, Adam, why don't you kick it off there?
Yeah, so we're super excited. We're like, So you'll see Jody a lot in there, as well as myself, and Zach's in there, Tom. We're really excited about it. We're hoping, the intent is for those of you that are wanting to deliver vCFO services, just to kind of learn from our mistakes and our journey. And so we share, as Jody mentioned, both internally and externally, this information so that it takes us through the sales process, the delivery process, basically everything that we've evolved from over the last 15, 20 years. And so along with the courses and the modules, we'll have some teaching sessions in there. We're actually getting CPA or CPE certified for it. So hopefully that'll be coming soon too. So that will be there. But along with it, if you do sign up for the course, we'll do a free coaching session after you've kind of been through it all, just to kind of make sure that it's framed in the right way and that you're getting value out of it. And then Jody and I or Tom will all be available, one or all of us, on a weekly basis for a course of a year, just to kind of make sure that you're implementing it and answering any kind of questions that you might have based on the information. Join the Slack community if you're not already in there. It's only as good as the people in there. So ask questions, don't be shy, really create a lot of good conversation in there. You'll get a copy from our famed author, Jody Grunden, his book, Building a Virtual CFO Firm in the Cloud. Great book. It kind of talks a little bit about our playbook, and it really sets the foundation for the course. And then, of course, we're going to have discounts on all the software and tools that we use. So we have a buffet of different tools that we use to deliver our vCFO service, and we've worked with our vendors to provide you all with discounts as well if you sign up for the course. So excited about that.
Yeah, reach out to any of us in that Slack community. Here's our contact info as well. And I just saw that there's a typo on the slide. I do not have a CPA, I have SPHR, but so that should be that those initials after my name should be scary to everyone. But Tom, why don't you lead us in our questions that we've had come in?
Yes, as Zach said, if you have any accounting questions, those go to him directly. He has claimed himself.
You want to go to jail really quickly? I'm your guy.
Yeah. Zach, thanks for joining us and leading today's conversation. Adam and Jody, thanks for your contributions around just how we're doing things at Summit. Hope people enjoyed today's presentation. I hope that it was really, we made the point that this people part is a very much a part of our virtual CFO process, success, everything we look at, that really is a really key area that we focused on significantly. As I said at the beginning of the webinar today, we will be sending out CPE certificates and slides via email. So if you went through and did the polling questions, no specific action that you have to take on your part. If you do want to reach out to us and ask questions, you can after this. Otherwise, to the speakers, thank you today, and thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, everybody.